Weird phone call? So, I've got a story. There are complications I need to explain first for things to make full sense. Mainly that I'm not good at making friends, keeping them, socializing ECT. But I am pretty good at online games. Kind of. Point is, throughout high school, I didn't have friends in real life. I had one for a few years, I guess. But she chose her shitty ex-boyfriend over me, so whatever. Mainly, I stuck with a group of people I met on the internet. Good, honest people. Still talk to most of them after 5 to 7 years. I had an online boyfriend at the time that I decided to move in with, and it wasn't on a whim. Honest. I lived in Arkansas, and trust me, it's the shittiest place in the world. On top of all that, there was a bunch of family drama and depression going on. So a new state? Hell yes. I know him inside and out, and he knows me the exact same. 2 months after graduating high school, I moved in with him and his family. We kind of broke up last year, but we're still living together, separate rooms, and we're still really good friends. Anyway, I started playing this online game, P2PMMORPG to be exact, about right when I moved in. I was super addicted to it and played it for the whole first year I lived with my ex. I'll call him Pat. Over that entire first year I had been playing that game, I didn't talk to anyone in-game. I didn't make any friends whatsoever. I eventually made 2. We didn't play often, but when we did, I hadn't realized how much fun it was to play with friends again. One was a guy named Cody, the other a girl named Beth. They had been close friends for years prior to meeting me. Beth and I had this thing where we would go around in the towns of the game in skimpy clothing and recruit for our newly made guild. A cheap tactic, but we had so much shameful fun with it, we didn't care. Most of the time, Cody would join our Skype calls and sigh deeply in the background of our incessant giggling. On our second recruitment spree, Beth ran across a male character and started flirting with him. This was our tactic, and we referred to it as reeling them in. Eventually, I caught up with her and joined in. Soon enough, the guy had a friend of his join in, and his friend became my target. They were both already in a guild, but we tried to convince them to switch over to our side. In the end, we lost, but not without friend requests. I didn't expect anything of it, as I considered myself lucky to even make friends with Cody and Beth. A week or so later, I ran into their characters in town. We goofed around a bit, and soon Beth joined us too. A few hours of dancing in-game, and Beth suggested I ask if they had Skype. I, being far too shy for that, protested and outright refused to do so. She kept prodding me the whole night about it, but I never did ask. Then a few days later, I ran into them again. They seemed quite the pair, never one without the other. I could tell they were really close friends. We goofed off for a little, as was usual for us, and then decided to do some dungeons together. They were good players, and it was easy to tell they had been playing the game for quite a while. After we had finished, the original guy's friend had to go to bed. I hung around with the first guy for a while until he asked me if I had a Skype. I felt a whole new kind of euphoria and excitement. I always do when I make a friend, like actually make one. One to the point where they actually want other means to contact me. So of course I told him I did and gave him my Skype handle. Right off the bat he wanted to call, and honestly I was pretty nervous. It took me days to start talking around Cody and Beth, and then days more to eventually become just a little bit comfortable. I mean, I wasn't even sure if this guy was an actual male in real life. Of course, there was no telling I was a girl in real life for him either, but I don't think he really cared. So after a bit of stumbling, I began to hold an actual conversation with him. God, I was out of my mind with anxiety, but the guy was so charismatic and friendly, it was easily to feel comfortable. I learned that he was the same age as me, and his name was Jack. His friend was 2 years younger than him and named Keen. I told him about Beth and how we were pretty good friends outside of the game, even though we hadn't known each other long. Apparently, Jack and Keen had been friends for several years, even having met in real life before. That explained why they were so attached to each other. I found it cute, honestly. The next day over, I met Keen, and he was much more of a soft-spoken, sweet kind of guy. Not nearly as outgoing as Jack was, but still more than willing to be friends. I couldn't describe to you how happy I was. Making friends is a huge thing to me, and when I do, I tend to cling to them pretty closely. Neither Jack nor Keen seemed to mind. Although Jack had much more going on in real life than Keen or I did. I don't have a Facebook, but the both of them did and showed them to me, so they definitely were who they said they were. Honest to God, good and friendly people. This continued on for a few months. Sometimes Jack would be gone at conventions and the like for a few days, then come back and tell me all of the amazing people he met. I somehow knew I would never amount to the people he talked about. For one, Jack's a cosplayer, a pretty attractive guy. Me? I'm less than average and suffer from severe lack of self-confidence. All in all, I considered myself closer to Keen. We spent more time together, and he was more like me. Reserved, bit quiet when we wanted to be. Soon, my ex Pat started to play the game with us. He also became good friends with Keen. Pat and I agreed that Jack was overly flirtatious. It was obvious he flirted with me just for fun. I always refused him and never played along with it, but I never hated him for it. I found it more demeaning than anything because I knew a guy like him would never be interested in me. I knew that was just in his personality, though. It wasn't as if I could just say, "Hey, stop being who you are, it's bothering me." I mean, I guess I could have, but it wasn't as if it were causing me serious discomfort or anything. I knew it was all a joke. I tried my best not to think low of Jack. We would have long conversations about how lonely he was, and about how all of the relationships he had were based off physical aspects. Most of the time, I became his pillow of comfort. I'd tell him he was a good person, that someone would come along, that he shouldn't worry. He was still young. It never really worked. I suppose it staved off the loneliness for a little bit, but it always came back. I couldn't blame him, though. I saw a lot of myself in him. I was the exact same way, except no one really wanted me in any aspect. We were so similar in how we felt about things. The emotions he went through and explained to me countless times, I understood them all because I had felt the same things countless times before. I completely understood him, or I like to believe I did. There was one day that Jack was discouraged over a girl he liked. Well, more discouraged than usual. He explained he was done with her, that he was going to hit some other girl up to see if she was with it. That was just the way he talked. After all of the long talks we had had before over him being misunderstood by others, I tried not to think anything of it. He wasn't that shallow, right? He didn't just want sex, he wanted an actual relationship. I tried hard to believe this, but as the conversation progressed, I started losing faith in that. I started to get disgusted. He wasn't saying things that were considered gentlemanly in the least. I was fed up with it and eventually stopped replying. I soon turned to Keen. I kept asking him why he thought Jack was a good person. Keen explained that Jack had always been there for him, paid for a ticket and hotel room just to meet him, and that he was better in every way. I felt so incredibly disturbed talking to Keen. How could he say that Jack was better in every way? Keen wasn't like Jack at all. Keen was sweet and cared so much about every little thing he said to Jack. There was a time they had a fight, and Keen was so beaten up over it that I had to keep him company so that he wouldn't tear himself apart. Keen denied everything that I told him Jack had said. "He's joking. He doesn't mean it," I quickly retorted with nimble fingers. "Didn't seem like it to me, not at all." Keen continued to reassure me. I couldn't really say much. Keen knew Jack better than me. Maybe he was right. Jack was just having a hard time. I tried not to act differently around him, but his image was already tainted. I talked to Pat about this too, and he agreed with me. He was a bit more harsh in regards to Jack, honestly, but I tried my best not to hate him. He was still my friend. Keen and I had agreed to join another server on our online game for when we were bored. It was a role-playing server, so we made up new names, backstories, and everything. We were both really excited about it. Keen began to play on that server a lot more often than our original one. Eventually, he started to drift off from me and Jack. Sometimes Keen would join our calls but simply remain silent as he typed away in reply to his new friends. I slowly accepted it. It's always been a fear of mine to lose friends after the shitty one from high school. As much as I wanted to believe it wouldn't happen, I was already prepared for it. I'm just that much of a pessimist. Jack, on the other hand, was pissed off about it. If he doesn't care, so what? We don't need him. It was kind of sad to see how easily Jack would throw him away. It was nothing compared to the way Keen felt about him. By this time, Jack and Keen had left their old guilds to join mine. We had reformed the whole thing, had plans for it. Of course, no, none of it ever happened. Keen was pretty much gone by now, saying he was busy every time I invited him to do something together. That was all right, I was growing used to his distance. One night, Jack and I were in a raid when we met someone in-game that we decided to joke around with. At the end of the raid, I had jokingly suggested they join our server. Little did I know, this person actually took my suggestion seriously. Pat showed me the name of his character requesting to join our guild right as I was about to head to bed. I had a good laugh about it, and feeling great about meeting someone new again, fell asleep with a good feeling. The next day I started to get to know our new friend. His name was Kurt, and was a bit older than all of us. The more I got to know him, the more I latched onto him. It's just what I do when I first meet someone. Several times Jack had tried to get my attention, but it ended up being bad timing. I was busy talking with Kurt one night, then the next few I had to sleep early for work. I suppose I could have added Jack to the call with Kurt, but every time we all were in a call, it felt a bit awkward and strained. I don't think Jack liked Kurt very well. I figured it was because I was no longer paying all of my attention to Jack, and I was kind of done with him acting like a kid about it. That weekend was a huge convention that Jack went off to. I was used to not talking to him for a few days because he was busy. It was never something that bothered me. I initiated conversation with Jack several times, but we never really talked, unless he initiated conversation with me. Mostly then, it was about how sad he was feeling about this and that, and I kind of grew tired of it. This kid bitched about every little thing and hated his life over every small mishap that it made me so annoyed. Here I was, or still am technically, with full-fledged depression, poor looks, and nearly no money compared to him who had, well, everything. I understood that he had every right to feel what he did because that's how emotions work. Then again, it frustrated me. I never complained as much as him. By the time he came back, he suddenly told me we weren't friends anymore. Completely out of the fucking blue. I was confused to say the least. I told him we could talk it out, or he could just act like nothing happened. And well, he chose the latter. I said, fine, I guess we aren't friends anymore. He replied with, fine, goodbye, Amy. And that was the last I spoke with him on the matter. It tore me up for a long time. I had lost both Jack and Keen in such a short amount of time. I supposed at least I had Kurt to talk to. He was comforting, a bit of a realist and definitely blunt, but he said everything I needed to hear. No sugarcoating, just cold reality. People can be like that. If he's fine with throwing you away that easily, he was never really your friend to begin with. He just wanted attention. A few days after, I talked to Keen about it. The first I had talked to him in probably a month. He replied with things like, "What? Why would he do that?" I have no clue. I explained that it happened out of nowhere, that he never told me what was wrong, but it happened, and I was done with it. I was too grown up for kids' games like that, and that was the last I had talked to Keen. Pat had received a message on Facebook from Jack telling him that he still wanted to be friends with him, just not me. Pat asked why, and finally I got some fucking answers. Apparently Keen had told Jack about the conversation we had had a while ago, about how I was losing faith in Jack being a good person. And just to note, this was maybe 2 or 3 months before Keen eventually told him. I just wanted reassurance. I'm not trying to justify myself, but I wanted someone to tell me he was a good person. I know I should have talked to Jack about it. Then again, our friendship probably could have ended a lot sooner than it did. Jack apparently started hating me and eventually wanted to cut all ties with me. Fine, I was done with it. That all was a month ago. Not even a week ago, I had a missed phone call at 11:47 at night. My phone was on silent, so I hadn't seen it until I had rolled over and checked my phone probably 10 minutes later. The number was unknown, but the area code wasn't from around where I lived. I Googled it and found it was from the state Keen lived in. Now I had deleted both Keen and Jack's phone numbers, Skype handles, everything. Thinking logically, Keen was the only one that had my number from that state, unless it were some weird phone scam. I noticed that I had a voicemail. From my T-Mobile visual voicemail app, It told me that the message was 3 minutes long. Huh. Okay. I pressed play on the message and it was entirely silent. There was a soft noise that could be heard every second or so, a sound I recognized as sleeping. There was a time that Keen had fallen asleep on a Skype call, and he had this cute little snore that I remember fawning over. I recognized it as his. Well, he must have accidentally dialed me, I supposed. I listened to the message for about a minute, but finding nothing strange, closed the voicemail and went back to sleep. I was a little creeped out, but knew it was nothing important. I expected to get some kind of text message in the morning from him saying, "I accidentally called you last night, haha, sorry." That text message never came. I figured maybe it was because we hadn't really talked for the last month, that we weren't nearly as close as we used to be, so it would be strange to say that. I don't know, I was just making shit up to stop myself from thinking not even Keen cared about you. Yesterday evening, I got a message from an unknown Skype handle, 10:08:05 p.m. "Have you heard from Keen?" The only person that would message me on Skype like that would most likely be Jack. 10:08:34 p.m. "Did he call you or leave you a weird voice message?" I decided I'd humor him a bit. I was still a bit resentful towards him, but it was a harmless question. 10:10:54 p.m. Sinistar. Yeah, he called, but it wasn't a weird voicemail. He was just sleeping. I figured it was an accident. I haven't heard from him since. Figured he was busy with school. 10:11:02 p.m. B. You didn't listen to the end of the voicemail, did you? 10:11:48 p.m. Sinistar. It was 3 minutes long. Why would I listen to all of that? I assume he accidentally called you too? Weird, I guess. 10:13:2 p.m. Amy, that wasn't an accident. I didn't know what to say because I figured he was freaking me out on purpose, so I didn't reply. 10:15:22 p.m. Something's wrong. I don't know what he means by that. I've been too busy with work today that I haven't bothered with the message. I'm pretty skeptical that it's anything important, but I'm going to listen to it eventually. It's actually scaring me a little bit. I just wanted some feedback as to what someone else thinks it is. Pat thinks it's a joke and nothing to worry about, but I don't know. It's kind of exciting to think it might be something, right?
I can't believe that you are still listening to these stories. You must really hate yourself. You are over 20 minutes into a cringe, creepy stories YouTube video. Your ancestors fought saber-toothed tigers with rocks, and this is what you are doing. If you are enjoying this video, you should like and subscribe, or don't, I don't care. It's a free country, do whatever you want. Daddy just needs a little money so he can pick up a new 50 series NVIDIA GPU is all.
I have been pooping for 20 years straight by you crusty toe bro. It started like any other morning. I was 25, fresh out of college and grabbing a coffee before heading to my new job. But after the first sip, I felt a rumbling in my stomach. Figuring it was just the coffee doing its job, I ran to the restroom, expecting the usual quick visit. But I didn't leave. Minutes turned to hours, hours to days. Every time I tried to stand up, the pressure would return, forcing me back down onto the toilet. At first, I thought it was some weird stomach bug, something that would pass. I tried doctors, medications, everything, but nothing helped. Days turned to weeks. My body didn't wither, didn't weaken. I just kept pooping. My friends tried to help, but they soon drifted away. Work fired me, of course, but I never left the house to care. I was bound to this porcelain throne. Years passed, and my life outside the bathroom faded away. The walls of the room began to change, growing darker, the tiles warping, shifting. It felt like something was watching me, feeding off my endless torment. I tried to remember the taste of solid food, the feeling of fresh air, but the memories slipped away, replaced by the unrelenting smell of waste. Now 20 years have passed. My reflection in the mirror looks like a stranger, gaunt, hollow eyes staring back. The bathroom feels smaller now, the door further away each day. I can't stop. I don't think I ever will. I can't wait for my girlfriend to find out that I have been cheating on her. Written by user shortstory1 on Reddit. I can't wait till my girlfriend finds out that I have been cheating on her. I have been cheating on her with 4 other women, and I also can't wait for those 4 other women to find out that I have been cheating on them as well. The reason why I can't wait for my girlfriend and the other women to find out that I have been cheating on them is because they will realize that it is impossible for me to cheat. It truly is impossible for me to cheat, even when I am cheating, and I am going to love it when they all find out. I have been leaving my phone around the house in the hopes that my girlfriend will find it and see the messages. I have also been doing the same with the other 4 women I have been cheating with, but they never check my phone. When they all find out that I have been cheating on them, they will soon realize that I am not cheating and that it is impossible for me to cheat. I keep leaving breadcrumbs and clues about my cheating, but none of them are picking up the signal that I am doing something behind their backs. I admit it that when they miss clues of my cheating, I do become angry because it's making the whole journey much longer. But I guess the journey is the point for all destinations. Then finally, when I purposely left my phone on the bed and it was turned on, my girlfriend saw something on my phone which caused her distress. Finally, it is going to start. My girlfriend and the other 4 women are going to find out that I have been cheating on them. I was secretly spying through the door as my girlfriend became upset. She wasn't talking to me and acting all grumpy. I would pretend to not know what was wrong with her. She also put the numbers of the other girls onto her phone, and she is clearly going to tell them that I have been cheating. They are going to plan to confront me. My girlfriend was now pretending to being all jolly and that she was going to take me out somewhere. She looked confused when I wasn't bothered that she took me to a place where the other 4 women were also present to confront me about my cheating. They all shouted at me and poured drinks on me. All I said to them was, "I am not cheating. It's impossible for me to cheat." They all looked confused. Then something came out of the shadows and it looked like a creature, but it was actually human. It was all of the women that I had cheated on in the past, and they had all fused together to be one. Then my present girlfriend and the other 4 women started to fuse together with this thing and became one. See, I told you all that I don't cheat. I only keep with one, and you are all one. The speaker is written by WowGeek29 on Reddit. I'm on my way home after a hard day at school to see that my dad had set up the old computer in the kitchen area. I never really did like the old computer, but I've had a fear of TVs and electronics like that since I was a kid, so I didn't tell Dad how I didn't like it there, since I was 12 around. Then I wanted to feel grown up. My sister was home from college that week, and we had just gotten Super Mario Bros. For Wii. As me and my sister were playing co-op mode, we heard a sort of raspy old man voice coming from what we thought was the living room closet. It was as if he was laughing at us. I only heard it at first, and I asked my sister if she could hear it. She said she didn't hear anything and called me silly. I knew there was something going on, but I didn't want to believe it. Then I heard it again, and it was much louder this time, so I asked her again if she heard it. She did that time, and me and her were both freaked out, so we turned to the game and went to bed. That night I woke up at about 1 in the morning, and I went to get some water in the kitchen and saw that the computer monitor was on. I felt a chill up my spine because the monitor is rarely ever on at all. The computer was only used for school or work purposes, so I knew Mom or Dad wouldn't be on it that late. I went back to bed quickly as to not wake my parents up. The next day I came home to find my sister curled upon the couch, just staring at the TV. I asked her what was wrong. She said, "When I was playing Mario, every time I died, the voice kept mocking me, telling me that I sucked, that I should just stop playing and get a life." So I called one of my friends and told them to quit playing around. It's not funny and it wasn't him. I've just been sitting here since. After she told me, we heard it laughing again, and so we tried to call Mom. She didn't answer. The voice said, "You think you can get rid of me by calling your mother? That's not gonna happen." And it started laughing hysterically, and me and my sister ran outside until Mom got home. Once Mom got home, we brought her into the living room so she could hear for herself. She thought we were crazy and told us to stop being so immature and go to bed. I couldn't sleep that night, afraid that it would haunt my dreams, afraid that I'd have to go through another day of this torture. It was my worst nightmare come to life, and I couldn't stop it from happening. My thoughts were right. It went on for a good week, and I couldn't go into the house without my sister or mother coming home first. I thought I was going mad. I thought that it was all inside my head, and I couldn't make any sense of it. I went to counseling, but it didn't help at all. I could hardly get any sleep. Until one day the voice, I could hear it, but not from the usual spot I hear it. It was coming from the kitchen, from the old computer. It came from the speakers. I had always thought the speakers were unplugged, so I checked, and they were. Once I checked, all I could hear were screams. Screams of bloody murder coming from the speakers. I threw the speakers across the room. I couldn't move. I felt trapped within the screams. After that day, I find it hard to use any other computers that aren't laptops. My dad brought the old computer downstairs because it wouldn't work after what happened that day. It still scares me to this day to do laundry downstairs. I usually bring my old dog with me, but I don't know what I'll do when she's gone. I still have nightmares about the voice, the screams, the threats, all the things that came from the speakers. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment down below if you have any story recommendations or want to see something covered. If you don't like and subscribe, you will be cursed with having to poop for 20 years straight.